It was a typical Monday morning at the bustling headquarters of Griffin Enterprises, a multi-million-dollar conglomerate led by its powerful yet ruthless CEO, Richard Griffin. Known for his unyielding focus on profits and his intolerance for perceived inefficiencies, Richard ran the company with an iron fist. Employees tread lightly around him, fully aware that any mistake could cost them their careers. Among his employees was Emma Caldwell, a diligent marketing strategist who had worked tirelessly for the company for over 5 years. Emma was not only skilled at her job, but also beloved by her co-workers for her kindness and collaborative spirit. However, Emma had been hiding something for the past few months. She was 6 months pregnant. She had delayed announcing her pregnancy, fearing how Richard might react. Griffin Enterprises had a reputation for being an unforgiving workplace, especially for employees who needed special accommodations. Stories of people being let go for taking extended medical leaves or for failing to meet rigid deadlines were all too common. Emma knew that revealing her pregnancy could jeopardize her position, but as her baby bump became more noticeable, she realized she couldn't keep it a secret any longer. One afternoon, Emma mustered up the courage to schedule a meeting with Richard to discuss her situation. She entered his lavish corner office with a sense of trepidation. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but the cold, sterile decor mirrored the man who sat behind the massive mahogany desk. "Mr. Griffin," Emma began nervously, "I wanted to let you know that I'm expecting a baby in a few months. I wanted to discuss how we can plan my workload to ensure a smooth transition while I'm on maternity leave." Richard's piercing gaze bore into her, and his expression hardened. "Maternity leave?" he scoffed, leaning back in his leather chair. "Emma, this is a critical time for the company. We're about to launch one of our biggest campaigns, and I need every member of my team fully committed. Taking leave now would disrupt the entire department." Emma's heart sank. "I understand, sir, but I've already started preparing to delegate my responsibilities. I'll make sure there's a seamless handoff, and I'm willing to work up until my due date." Richard waved a dismissive hand. "Emma, this isn't about you being willing to work. It's about the optics and the efficiency of the team. I can't have someone who's distracted or unavailable when we're at such a critical juncture. I'm sorry, but I think it's best for both of us if we part ways." Emma felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. Are you firing me because I'm pregnant?" she asked, her voice shaking with a mix of disbelief and anger. "Let's not make this personal," Richard replied coldly. "It's a business decision. I'll have HR process your severance package." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she left the office. The news spread quickly throughout the company, leaving her co-workers shocked and disheartened. Many whispered among themselves, questioning the morality of the decision, but knowing better than to speak up against Richard Griffin. That evening, Emma returned home, devastated. Her husband, Michael, was waiting for her. Michael was a reserved yet fiercely intelligent man who had built a reputation as a visionary entrepreneur in the tech world. He immediately noticed the distress on Emma's face. "What happened?" he asked gently, taking her hands in his. Emma recounted the events of the day, her voice breaking as she explained how Richard had dismissed her without a second thought. Michael's expression darkened. He knew all too well the type of person Richard Griffin was: cutthroat, arrogant, and utterly devoid of empathy. But as Emma spoke, an idea began to form in Michael's mind. "Don't worry," Michael said, his tone calm but resolute. "We're not going to let him get away with this." Emma looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" Michael gave her a reassuring smile. "Just trust me." Little did Emma know, her husband was about to turn their lives, and Richard Griffin's, completely upside down. Michael Caldwell was no ordinary man. While he often chose to stay out of the limelight, his name was well known among industry titans. He was the founder of Innovatech, a groundbreaking tech company that specialized in AI-driven solutions. Innovatech wasn't just successful, it was a dominant force in its field, with partnerships spanning multiple Fortune 500 companies. Michael's reputation as a quiet disruptor preceded him, but what most people didn't realize was just how far-reaching his influence truly was. After hearing Emma's story, Michael knew that Richard Griffin had not only made a cruel and unethical decision, but also underestimated the woman he had dismissed. Emma's contributions to Griffin Enterprises had been significant, and Michael couldn't sit idly by while she was discarded like an expendable asset. He had no intention of letting Richard Griffin walk away unscathed. The following morning, Michael sat at his home office, reviewing detailed reports on Griffin Enterprises. Through his network of connections, he gained access to information about the company's financials, upcoming projects, and even its vulnerabilities. To his surprise, he discovered that Griffin Enterprises was in a precarious position despite its outward success. The company had overextended itself on a series of risky ventures, and its cash flow was heavily reliant on a single major investor, Northwell Capital. Michael immediately set up a meeting with a key figure at Northwell Capital, Mark Bennett, a longtime acquaintance and fellow philanthropist. Mark had always admired Michael's sharp business acumen and respected his opinions. When Michael outlined his plan, Mark listened intently, nodding as the pieces began to fall into place. Within days, Northwell Capital announced that it was withdrawing its funding from Griffin Enterprises. The news sent shockwaves through the company. Without Northwell's backing, Griffin Enterprises faced a severe liquidity crisis. Employees speculated about potential layoffs and project cancellations, while Richard Griffin scrambled to reassure his stakeholders that everything was under control. But Michael wasn't done yet. He used Innovatech's resources to strategically acquire shares of Griffin Enterprises, ensuring that his involvement remained discreet. Meanwhile, he encouraged several influential investors in his network to do the same. Within weeks, Michael and his allies held a significant portion of the company's stock. Richard Griffin, oblivious to Michael's growing influence, continued to operate as usual. He cut costs ruthlessly, slashing budgets and reducing employee benefits in an attempt to stabilize the company. His actions only fueled dissent among the workforce, with many employees growing increasingly disillusioned with his leadership. One afternoon, as Richard was preparing for a crucial board meeting, he received an unexpected call from one of his board members. "Richard," the voice on the other end said, "we need to talk. There's been a shift in the company's ownership structure." "What are you talking about?" Richard demanded, his tone sharp. "There's a new majority shareholder," the board member explained. "You should probably meet him. He's requested to attend today's meeting." Richard's mind raced. He had no idea who the new shareholder could be, but he knew that his position as CEO could be in jeopardy. Determined to maintain his authority, he resolved to face the mysterious shareholder head-on. At the board meeting, Richard was stunned when Michael Caldwell walked into the room. Dressed in a tailored suit and exuding quiet confidence, Michael greeted the board members with firm handshakes before taking a seat at the table. "You," Richard said, his voice laced with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Michael smiled calmly. "I'm here as the new majority shareholder of Griffin Enterprises," he replied, "and I believe we have a lot to discuss." The board members exchanged glances, sensing the tension between the two men. Richard attempted to regain his composure, but it was clear that he was caught off guard. He had no idea how Michael had orchestrated this takeover, but one thing was certain. His reign at Griffin Enterprises was no longer secure. As the meeting progressed, Michael outlined his vision for the company, a vision that emphasized ethical leadership, employee well-being, and sustainable growth. The board members listened attentively, impressed by his strategic insights and forward-thinking approach. By the end of the meeting, it was evident that Michael's influence was reshaping the company. Richard, once the unchallenged leader, now found himself at the mercy of a man whose principles and intellect far exceeded his own. But Michael wasn't just interested in taking over the company. He had a deeper purpose: to ensure that no one else would suffer the way Emma had. The aftermath of Michael Caldwell's entry into Griffin Enterprises was swift and transformative. Richard Griffin, once the domineering CEO, found himself navigating a rapidly changing environment. Michael's quiet but resolute leadership style was a stark contrast to Richard's authoritarian approach, and the employees were quick to notice. The first major change Michael implemented was a comprehensive audit of the company's practices. He brought in a team of experts to evaluate every department, with a particular focus on employee treatment and workplace culture. What the audit uncovered was shocking. Instances of harassment, unfair dismissals, and unethical policies had plagued the company for years. Many employees who had been terminated unfairly came forward with their stories, and Emma's case stood out as a glaring example of Richard's poor leadership. Michael wasted no time addressing the issues. He personally contacted Emma, apologizing for the way she had been treated and offering her a senior position in the company. Initially, Emma was hesitant. After all, the trauma of being fired while pregnant had left a deep scar. But Michael's sincerity and commitment to change won her over. "You deserve better," he told her, "and I promise you, this is just the beginning." Emma returned to the company, not as a subordinate, but as the head of a newly established department dedicated to employee welfare. Her role was to ensure that no one else would experience the mistreatment she had endured. While Emma was settling into her new position, Richard Griffin's world was unraveling. The board of directors, emboldened by Michael's leadership, began questioning Richard's past decisions. They demanded accountability for the company's recent struggles and insisted on a formal review of his tenure. Richard, desperate to salvage his reputation, attempted to justify his actions. "I was doing what was best for the company," he argued during a heated board meeting. But his excuses fell flat. The evidence of his mismanagement was overwhelming, and the board voted unanimously to remove him as CEO. The news of Richard's ousting spread quickly, and the employees celebrated his departure. For many, it felt like justice had finally been served. Richard, however, was not ready to fade into obscurity. He threatened legal action against the company, accusing Michael of orchestrating a hostile takeover. Michael, unperturbed by Richard's threats, remained focused on rebuilding Griffin Enterprises. He introduced a series of reforms aimed at creating a more inclusive and supportive workplace. Salaries were adjusted to reflect fair market values, and comprehensive benefits packages were rolled out for all employees. Training programs were implemented to promote diversity and inclusion, and a whistleblower hotline was established to address any future grievances. Under Michael's guidance, Griffin Enterprises began to thrive. The company's reputation, once tarnished by Richard's leadership, was now being restored. Clients and investors who had distanced themselves from the company started to return, impressed by the positive changes. Meanwhile, Richard's legal battle against the company fizzled out. Without substantial evidence to support his claims, his case was dismissed, leaving him humiliated and financially strained. One evening, as Michael was reviewing reports in his office, he received an unexpected visitor. Richard Griffin stood at the door, looking defeated. "What do you want, Richard?" Michael asked, his tone calm but firm. "I came to apologize," Richard admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I realize now that I let my ego blind me. I hurt a lot of people, including Emma, and I can't undo the damage I've done." Michael regarded him silently for a moment before responding. "Acknowledging your mistakes is a start," he said. "But actions speak louder than words. If you're truly sorry, prove it by using your skills to help others, not tear them down." Richard nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. It was a moment of humility he had never experienced before. As Richard left, Michael returned to his work, knowing that the transformation of Griffin Enterprises was far from over. But for the first time in years, the company was on the right path, and its future was brighter than ever. Months turned into years, and Griffin Enterprises became a shining example of what a reformed organization could achieve. Under Michael Caldwell's leadership, the company experienced unprecedented growth, not just financially, but in its workplace culture and public reputation. Employees felt valued, supported, and heard, a stark contrast to the oppressive environment they had endured under Richard Griffin. Emma's role as the head of employee welfare became instrumental in shaping this new culture. She introduced policies that prioritized work-life balance, mental health support, and equal opportunities for all employees. Her story of resilience and her journey from being wrongfully fired to becoming a pivotal leader within the company inspired others to stand up for what was right. One day, during an all-staff meeting, Michael announced a groundbreaking initiative. a scholarship fund for the children of employees named the Emma Caldwell Foundation. The fund aimed to ensure that no family associated with Griffin Enterprises would have to worry about their children's education. The announcement was met with thunderous applause, with Emma herself fighting back tears of gratitude. Richard Griffin, meanwhile, had embarked on his own journey of redemption. After his public apology, he dedicated himself to mentoring young entrepreneurs and supporting charitable organizations. While he would never regain his former stature, he found purpose in giving back to society, slowly repairing his tarnished image. The transformation of Griffin Enterprises caught the attention of the media, and soon, news outlets were running features on the company's remarkable turnaround. Michael and Emma were invited to speak at conferences, sharing their story of resilience, accountability, and the power of leadership rooted in empathy and integrity. One such event saw Michael addressing a packed auditorium. "Leadership is not about power or control," he said. "It's about service. It's about lifting others up and creating a legacy that outlasts you." Emma's story taught me that real change begins when we listen, truly listen, to those around us. The applause that followed was deafening, but Michael knew that the real reward lay not in accolades, but in the lives that had been transformed. In the years that followed, Griffin Enterprises became more than just a company. It became a movement. Other corporations began adopting similar reforms, inspired by the example set by Michael and Emma. As for Emma, she continued to thrive, balancing her role at the company with her growing family. Her child, who had been the catalyst for her firing, was now a bright and curious young student, often accompanying Emma to company events. One evening, as Emma sat in her office reviewing proposals, Michael stopped by. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he remarked, a smile on his face. Emma nodded, her heart full. "We have, and it's all because we believed in doing what was right, no matter the cost." Outside, the city lights twinkled, a testament to the countless stories of hope and transformation that Griffin Enterprises had inspired. The company's journey, marked by pain, perseverance, and profound change, became a beacon for others, proving that even in the face of adversity, it is possible to rewrite your story, and in doing so, change the lives of countless others.